like it takes a while for the masses to converge to the same consensus reality, which is the main reason we have such a big lag, right? In people. So I always feel like, okay, we are ahead of our times, like, and that's fine. Personally, I have had people come to me, engineers come to me, partly because I hold the space, saying, like every single time when we have any major launch, every single time there's an intervention from star beings. Every single time. Like if the launch is meant to happen, the entire weather will change in the 3 hours of a launch window to make it happen or not make it happen. You see? So every time when the rocket gets launched, I've already seen the pattern that there's always an intervention.
I'd like to welcome to the show, Shehnaz Soni. How you doing, Shehnaz?
I'm doing great, Alex. How are you doing?
I am doing good, my dear. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm super excited to talk to you. I have had quantum physics physicists on. I've had physicists on. I've had doctors on. I've medical doctors. I've had surgeons. I've not had a rocket scientist on before. So, especially a rocket scientist from NASA who's actively working in NASA and also talking about spirituality in a very big way. So I'm excited to dance the quantum dance of both sides, as you were putting it earlier before we started recording, doing that dance between the logical and the not logical, but the spiritual side, the more esoteric side. So we're going to talk about that and your book, The Quantum Being, which is covers a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about now. So thank you so much for being on the show.
I'm so excited about this convergence, Alex, because I know that this is opening a whole new portal for me to walk on.
Yes, absolutely. So you've lived a very interesting life, to say the least, from where you came from to where you are now working in NASA. And I know you worked with Boeing as well as a rocket scientist and an engineer. Can you tell the audience a little bit about your background and what a few obstacles you had to overcome to get to where you are today?
Yes. Yes. So my humble beginning started in Karachi, Pakistan, in a town that's very patriarchal culture, Orthodox Muslim. When I was born, my dad was like, why girl? Because, the boy is way more, useful in a society like that.
Oh.
And then on top of that, I was surrounded by chaos, like so much chaos that you are crossing the road and you're hoping that you don't die because there's so much traffic, but there's no way for you to cross other than just guessing, right? And I was always covered up and I was always pretty much heavily programmed to not go to school. Like I was heavily programmed that my life is going to be in the kitchen, cooking every single day once I get married. So therefore, any kind of studies would not serve me well. And my dad was very pragmatic. So he kept forcing me, especially because the more he was forcing me in that direction, the more I became a rebellious person. And what I did, I became a valedictorian. So basically, I completely went against everything that was suggested in my life. And basically, I came to America through arranged marriage, talking to a man for 1 hour, and my life completely transformed. Yes, because yeah, and he came from America. He was looking for a wife. There were 7 girls lined up, and I was the 5th one. And once he met me in the 1 hour interview, he asked me questions like, can you cook? And I said, no. He said, can you speak English? And I said, no. And then he said, but he knew that I was a valedictorian. So he basically, it's like you're putting money on the horse. He put the money on me.
Wow.
He's like, you know what? There's the potential here. Plus, he liked my honesty. He was like, wow, like she's saying like no to everything. And, because people in Pakistan are always looking to send their children to America. And like when you get married to somebody who comes from America, LA, it's almost like somebody came from Mars, to pick up a wife. It's like, oh, wow.
So you get to and you move to LA.
Yeah.
Oh my good Lord.
LAX airport is where I came. And you won't believe it because I've never seen anybody in my life, right? Like any other species other than me. So when I look at all these white people who are tall with colored eyes, with blonde hair, like to me, I was like, I mean, it was like such a world for me. I was like taken by the energy of people and everything.
No, it's interesting. Yeah, I can only imagine the culture shock from coming from Pakistan to Los Angeles. And you're seeing, beautiful people walking around everywhere, probably celebrities and that you didn't even know were celebrities because you
Yeah,
probably hadn't
exactly.
seen
It was like, it
anything.
was
Yeah.
incredible.
So from your journey from Pakistan to NASA, how has that influenced your own life's purpose and our place in the universe? Because that's a pretty interesting, humble beginning to where you are now. There's some magic that happened along the way for that process to happen. Not only your, as they say in my culture, cojones, uh, to to fight back and to say, no, I'm going to be who I am, regardless of my culture and surrounding and programming, to where you are now. But there had to be some lucky breaks, especially that gentleman who came in and put bet on the horse, as you say.
That's true. That's true. He did. And so this is actually a very good question because it also explains how we attract experiences towards ourselves subconsciously, right? So one thing happened was that as soon as I became a conscious of my existence, I felt like, I felt like a trap in my body. Like I felt like I'm a genie who's in a bottle, right? So I was like thinking, what is this story going on? Because when I became aware, I started asking questions. So I would ask questions to everybody around me, and no one will give me a single answer. So what happened was that I actually started wondering that how am I going to get all my answers, right? Because I had all these questions about what's beyond the sky that I see and how can I fly away if I want to. So in that quest, I actually learned that people who speak English, because I started watching Star Trek when it came on our television, I did not
Mhm.
understand any of it. The only thing I understood was that there is a certain people with certain outfit who stays alive all the time, and everybody else, when they have a different change in color, they die. So I was noticing the pattern there. And I was saying that English is the language I need to understand so I can understand the technology. So I was already thinking that, right? But I went to Urdu school, because my parents did not want to spend any extra money on the school. So I went to the public school. And by default, you go to Urdu medium school because that's the country. And so my entire life, I wanted to speak English, but I was a very good Muslim girl. I prayed 5 times a day. I was so good that every single prayer, I would say that one day I would like to speak English like Star Trek people. That was my wish, right? So you see how I was wishing it and I was getting ready. So that arranged marriage was like universe saying, okay, it's time for you to move into a whole new timeline, whole new
Mhm.
trajectory, whole new portal, and whole new planet from my perspective. So that to me is how I attracted that, right? Because it opened the door for that. And one of the thing I did not share with you is that in 1 hour interview, he asked me all those questions. I asked him only one question, and that was, can I continue my studies? Because I was already in an engineering school. I had just admitted myself there. And he basically said that, yes, of course, because I need help because I won't be the only bread and butter earner. Like he didn't say that, but in like that's what I learned after the marriage that he said yes because he was broke completely
Oh,
to the point where he couldn't even afford my ticket. My dad gave my ticket as a gift, a wedding gift, and he was grateful because he basically created a facade that he's, you know,
successful.
but when I came to his studio apartment and realized there was no bed, there was no space for me, the clothes were falling off, and I opened the drawer. He was in love with somebody else. I was just completely, my entire fairy tale collapsed. I mean, I was like, and I couldn't speak the language. I couldn't even call my mom because it was $1 a minute and he couldn't afford anything, right? So I started basically, I realized that I'm in a cage worse than the cage that I flew from.
So I have to ask you, what city in Los Angeles? What part of Los Angeles did
I
you
was
go into?
actually in Fullerton,
Oh,
apartment
okay.
in Fullerton. Yeah, right by Cal State Fullerton because he was going there to do his master's, which is the reason,
Wow.
we were so impressed by him.
Of course, but then the reality, it's kind of like Hollywood. On the screen, it looks beautiful, but when you go down to Hollywood Boulevard, not so much.
Oh, yeah, I know. That's true. You're right.
It's yeah, exactly. So it's very still. That's why I was curious about that. So at what point during your studies, as you becoming, as you becoming an engineer and a rocket scientist, and working with NASA and Boeing, when did you decide to start going down the spiritual path? When did you decide to investigate that aspect of it from someone who is so proficient in a very logical numbers, 1 + 1 = 2, to more of this, well, now we would call it the quantum mechanics, which 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in quantum mechanics.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
so what was what introduced you to the spiritual side of things, and then made you go into that space?
So the thing is that one of the things that I always noticed about everything is that I always ask a lot of questions because I was very curious, right, from day one. And I was so overwhelmed with my responsibility of being married to a man. His mom is living with me. I already had 2 boys with him. One of my son is a special son. So I was overwhelmed. And then I'm working full time in the corporate world as an aerospace engineer. Very, very challenging. Every project I worked on was very unique because I liked unique stuff. So I was so much in that life that I actually was like basically living a Groundhog Day. What happened was that I was not happy in that life. And I started sharing my unhappiness to my coworkers and, to my friends, close friends, and the people in the community. The problem was that everybody that I was surrounded by, they were all part of my community who were all doing the similar thing as I did. So they all said that just, oh, suck up, buttercup, like, what do you say? Like
Mhm.
almost like, right? So nobody was giving me encouragement that the fact that it was similar pattern that my dad did, right? He said, don't go to school. And I had to rebel against him. Similarly, when I started noticing that I'm not happy deep down, but nobody's agreeing with me, like nobody. And I would cry like after my like job was done and I was about to go to my home with the 2 boys, like in between, because I knew that now like there was no break, right? So there were times I would sit at my desk for a little longer and put my head down and cry because there was nobody in the office. Everybody had gone because I felt like that was my space to cry. And then what happened was that it kind of dawned on me that I have been asking all these questions to my community people. It's time to ask a question to somebody who's not from my community. You see, thinking outside the box like a Sunny and iRobot. So now I go to my colleague, right? He's a black guy with like a nice chubby. And so I say it to him. I say, you know what? I just want to ask you something very important. He said, what? I said, can you tell me that if you learn that Shehnaz has gotten a divorce from
Mhm.
some coworker, how would you take that? And then he looked at me and he said, oh, I would be like, oh, that Shana, and I would move on to the next problem. As soon as he said that to me, Alex, I really realized that why am I giving a damn about people? And that was the trigger for me to be more aware of it. So once like when I divorced my first husband, which represented my traditional world, my Muslim world, my world where I was a very good, devout Muslim wife, covered up. I only ate and wore what he wanted me to wear. I was in a very strict household. And I basically decided to say goodbye to all of it, but I still wanted to negotiate with him because I had 2 kids. So I actually told him that I'm ready to divorce if we don't do the right thing for our relationship because I'm very, very unhappy. So I worked on the marriage for 2 years and then I divorced him. But that opened the door for me to realize that there is a power that is within me and around me that's helping me repel when I decide to do something.
Mhm.
Because whenever there's no human being with me, there's something else that's with me. And see, that's what I call the God, the omnipresent source, the quantum field, like what is beyond our comprehension, that glue, right, that connects people. That I became aware of. But in January 2010, I actively pursued because I stumbled on a magazine. I had just moved to Huntsville from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and I stumbled on a magazine and it said Metaphysics 101. And being a physicist, I was like, what does this mean? I go on a Google and I type metaphysics and it says beyond physics. And you know me, like it's all about beyond. So I was like, this. And you know what? The interesting thing is, Alex, that when I wanted to attend that Metaphysics 101 class, I wanted to just check it out before I go. So they had a book club going on. And when I enter into that small, tiny 100-year-old house, as soon as I enter, I saw all the people, all of them white, all of them extremely old. And I felt like I was in a wrong place, right? Because I looked so different. I walk in there, I just sit on the very back just to see what conversation they're having. They use the word like clairaudience, clairsentience, telepathic, like all these words that I am like, these are my people. They don't look like it, but they are. And that was it. I learned every single course they could teach. And then I became a Kabbalah teacher myself because of my quest. So
That's amazing. So you've broken so many social barriers in your journeys, and you've broken through so many of your own personal barriers as well as societal barriers. What advice do you have for people with dealing with fear? Because to do what you've done in your life takes a major level of bravery that, many women in your position where you came from do not break free, do not go and follow their dreams, do not leave their husbands, do not go to school. They're too afraid to move forward. What advice would you give people who are dealing with fear?
for me, like I always look at things like, am I going to die because of being burned in a fire, or am I going to die by sinking in the water? Like when you are dealing with the fear, I always think that when you do something for yourself, it's almost like you're deciding how you're going to die. And I prefer to decide. Like I always felt, you know what I mean? Like that was the thing
Yeah.
for me. It's like, okay, you know what? I think that if I go this route, this is looking pretty messed up. But if I follow me, I have no idea, but I rather decide my own time. So that was my strategy, every
Such a
single time.
That's so wonderful. I've never heard it put that way before. Before we continue, I love your energy. You're fantastic. Your energy is kind of spilling off the screen as you're talking, so it's wonderful. But I would like to choose my own death. Thank you very much, because I don't want, you know what? And in many ways, why should I go down, if you want to look at it this way, why should you choose a death that someone else has chosen for you? Whether it be societal or family or religion or whatever, or job or whatever that is. I'd rather go down my own path, and I have no idea what death a lot awaits me there, but at least I'm the one choosing that one as opposed to whatever's been imposed on me. That's a wonderful way of looking at fear.
Exactly, exactly. And one thing that I would add now, because now my perspective has even enhanced based on everything I've learned about quantum physics. And what I would say is that everybody is watching a movie in this Hunger Game. Okay. And everybody says, please come sit with me and watch a movie. And of course, you're more than welcome to sit together and watch a movie as long as you like the movie you're watching together. So I always say that people are asking you, everybody has the agenda, right? Everybody's saying, come watch a movie with me. And you're like, okay, sure. But don't watch a movie that you don't want to watch. It's almost like you keep the relationship with somebody who is into sports only to pretend that you like the sport just for the heck of it. You know what I mean?
Right. No, I know exactly what you mean. Um, so as you were talking about quantum physics, I love quantum physics. I think it's fascinating. I love that we're in a place right now as a society that I can be talking to a NASA rocket scientist about quantum physics, or having a quantum physicist on and having deep conversations about quantum physics for someone who failed science in high school.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
fascinating me all the time, and that I understand many of the concepts at a rudimentary level. How does quantum physics for you and your experience in the physical world as a rocket scientist, how does that inform your understanding of the universe and our place in it?
So the quantum physics basically highlights that at the subatomic level, we're all same. And what it also highlights is that when you're observing the electron or the photon, your observation affects the momentum. Your observation affects what you're observing. So based on that, like whenever people say that, oh, I have a problem, I don't know how to solve it, I always say the fact that you already acknowledge the problem, you're already solving it. So the point of quantum physics is that it puts a charge on it. Like when you are paying attention to anything, you're putting a charge on it. You're triggering it. You're stimulating it because electron gets stimulated really fast, right? So that to me is very important for people to be aware that our consciousness basically is a proof of quantum physics.
And then, and you're talking about the split experiment with the observation and the non-observation. That's so interesting, because in physics, that's impossible.
Classical physics, yes.
It's in practical materialism, essentially. Makes no sense. But quantum physics is now, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Einstein called it spooky.
Yes. Spooky
This
action at a distance, yes.
yes, it's spooky because it it throws everything that we've been taught upside down. And people listening, they're like, well, this is a spiritual show. Why should we be talking? What does this have to do with spirituality? From my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of the concepts that are being discovered and explained within quantum physics are now catching up to ideas and concepts that have been in the Vedic texts for thousands of years, and many other ancient texts that they've been talking about for so long. And now quantum physics is starting to explain it and catch up. Do you find that to be the truth?
100%. And you know what the interesting thing is, that quantum physics was discovered more than 100 years ago, right? If we would have embraced it, we wouldn't have had such a dichotomy that now we're realizing it. To me, Kabbalah and quantum physics are saying the same thing. It's just a different language. So if you're a scientist, you will accept quantum physics. If you're a spiritual alchemist, you will accept Kabbalah. And since I dwell into both worlds, I can actually explain why they're saying the same thing. Partly because if you really think about it, classical physics very much is focusing on the physical aspect of our existence, right? So if you really look at the first law of thermodynamics, second law of thermodynamics, all of these laws, they're very much looking at us, the tip of the iceberg. I mean, we are tip of the iceberg if you only look at your physical existence. All your other existence, emotional, mental, spiritual, you can feel emotional, mental, spiritual, right? So when you really look at that, then you realize that, my God, I mean, the most part of us is hidden. And quantum physics helps us unwind that because of the unified field theory, because, everything is interconnected. Every single thing is interconnected.
And that is, I mean, that is the concept that has been going around in spirituality for thousands of years. That there is the illusion of separation,
Exactly.
is what we live in, is the illusion of separation. The quantum field is connecting all of us. We are all connected. If you hurt someone, you're essentially hurting yourself in many ways on a spiritual standpoint. Is that fair to
Yes,
say?
100%. I actually say that when people come in your life, then it's because you can't process everything by yourself. I mean, you're here to interact with other people, other places, other things. So people actually are a mirror to you. And when they are showing you something, it's because it's more like, you're working through your inner child, through your own children, for example. You see my point? So yeah, anybody that comes in your light, if you really look at people like that, to me, they're kind of a gift, whether they're nice to you or not. In both cases, they're telling you something about yourself.
And would you agree that when people come into, or events happen into your life, specifically people, the question that you should ask is not if you're angry at somebody that has come into your life or into your circle or into your energy, not to be angry at them, but to really do self-exploration. I'm like, how did I set the stage to allow this kind of energy to come into my life? What am I working on that this energy needed to come in? Is that also a fair statement to say?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Because, ultimately you're the source, because you're projecting everything through people, through places, through experiences. So since you're the source, if you're seeing a pimple when you're looking in the mirror, right, you're going to have to fix your face, right? Rather than keep on working on the mirror. So I agree with you to come back to you. So that to me is pretty much, quantum physics actually helps you become more responsible for your part of the light in this big light show.
Yes, it's a very big light show to say the least. Um, as uh, as you are part of a project, I think it's called Artemis, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And please, can you tell people what the Artemis project is?
Yeah. So Artemis actually was named after the twin sister, Apollo sister. Um, so it's a Greek mythology, right? So it's very interesting how they pick all these names, because in this particular mission, the main mission that I'm working on, which is when the human gets involved on going to the moon, which is called Artemis 3 mission, which is scheduled for September 2026 right now. That mission is where the woman is going to walk on the moon first, and then the man. So they call the whole series as Artemis mission. And the entire goal for the mission is to go to the moon, live on the moon, learn how to mine and 3D print all the resources on the moon, and then use moon as a layover place for us to go to Mars and colonize Mars in 2030s.
So as we, I'd love to hear your point of view of this, because space is a large area, to say the least.
Large, unknown, yeah, somewhat.
Unknown,
Yes.
ever expanding, infinite, all these amazing words. The exploration because you are essentially at the forefront of the exploration of space. How does your understanding of the exploration of space mirror the exploration of the self, which is as deep and as vast as the universe?
Exactly. So I think it's interesting because I feel like you're right, because we are the universe, right? So the fact that it's happening to this level, I think that actually to me means that just like I had to leave, like a country like a Pakistan to come to America, right? So to me, I had to do that as my own life just to prove myself that I can actually thrive in a whole different country with a whole different language and all that. It's almost like I attracted this opportunity for me to work on a program that's going to take us beyond Earth to Mars. It's almost like leaving from Pakistan to LA. So going from Earth to Mars. I think that what it does in a very big scheme of life is that it opens the door in so many ways of answering all these questions about what really is the Milky Way and what really is happening on the moon and the Mars. What is really truth and what is really not? Because the very fact that we're actually doing it, to me, says that like how people say we didn't even go to the moon, right? So there's all these stories there, and I have comments on those too. But the point is that there's all these things going on, and always I've noticed that the truth is always in between somewhere, right? Because there's one extreme, then there's another extreme, and then the truth is somewhere in the middle. So I feel like it's opening the door to kind of mess up everyone's reality in a good way, to see beyond this confined globe or prison planet or whatever we're on, right? Because it will at least unfold whether how right we are or how wrong we are, or how much can we do. But in the process, because I say journey is intertwined with the destiny, my thing is that in the process of even doing the Artemis mission, we have been really overcoming a lot of technical barriers that we would never do. So it's almost like you have to create something that may look impossible, right? But when you do that, it opens the door for you to keep on doing better and keep on doing better. So you are evolving in the process.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to both Houston and to Kennedy Space Center.
Kennedy Space Center,
yeah, so I've seen both of the. I've been at both places, and then if you see the equipment that they use to launch those missions to the moon, it's insane. It's essentially string and tape. I mean, how in God's creation? I mean, they're doing math on paper. They're doing algebra and calculus on paper, trigonometry on paper, in real time.
Yes.
It's fascinating to see. So you're absolutely right. It just keeps, because it was impossible. I mean, to send a person in the moon in the 60s, it's impossible. It just shouldn't have existed.
Right.
Really.
And if you really think about the rocket that we launched in November 2022, I guess the Artemis 1, I mean, that rocket is one of the heaviest ever. And when you look at the rocket, I mean, like the fact that every single thing we do at the Johnson Space Center or Kennedy Space Center, it takes a long, long time just to move the rocket from one. And plus, we have to make sure that nothing can mess up the vibration. I mean, it's ridiculous amount of work you have to do anything simple with that. Even for astronaut, I mean, they get trained on making sure that how they pee, right? Because, when you do your, I mean, so that your body doesn't get messed up, your suit doesn't get messed up. I mean, it's incredible amount of work you have to do for every step of the way. And the very fact that we're actually doing it, I mean, that's just incredible. But it also shows that how, Jacob ladder, right? Like you took a step, right? And you took a step. And when you keep on taking the step, then you create that beautiful mandala, right? Like, and then you see this like, and that's how our life is. Because if you really look, when you start seeing your pattern and how you bring yourself from one point to another, And I think for me, that is the reason that I have done this extreme thing, because I always say, Alex, that I'm a girl whom you can, if you're filming me, right? I'm a girl who is basically in the street of Karachi, completely covered up, walking while the bus is blowing up with people in it. I have been there. Okay. But I'm also a girl who was working on a missile defense program to protect us from North Korea and Iran. And I was in a room with only few people, and most of them are five-star general. And I was the only woman and Pakistani. How did I create that reality for me to have such an incredible experience?
Oh, listen, to a lesser extent, how did the boy who worked at a video store end up working with Oscar-winning actors in Hollywood as a
That's true.
director?
That's amazing.
Yeah, so like the boy who watched these actors and these producers and these directors on a VHS in the late 80s, early 90s, to not only sometimes be working with some of them, 10, 15 years later, to be interviewing some of the greatest ever and having conversations and building relationships with. How is that even possible?
Right.
It makes no sense. It really makes no sense.
But there was something in you. There was something in you that got you there. And that, to me, you're the only one who knows that secret sauce. Because see, because you were not accepting your reality as it. Like, that's the thing that I always use the word park. Like, you're parking. Like, I think of marriage as you're parking yourself. I mean, no offense, but what I'm saying, I mean, it's good when you're parking yourself with somebody that you love to park yourself with, you see?
Yes.
But don't park yourself with people that you truly don't want to, because, we have so many channels to dial.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you seem so open about your beliefs, about your understanding. You've written a book. You've pretty much come out of the spiritual closet publicly at this point in the game.
Yes.
So how have your colleagues reacted to this new kind of spiritual, version of you? Because from my understanding, the physics community, I'm assuming the rocket sciences community, probably not going to metaphysics
That is very
trainings.
true.
So how have they reacted to you coming out? Because you're not retired. You're not like after you worked 40 years inside of the program and then you left, oh, now I could finally talk about what I really believe. You are literally on the front lines right now with this mission to the moon. So how do they react? And how did you deal with the way they reacted?
So one of the things that I noticed, that all the people I knew in my career, whom I really respected, they really respected me. When my book was even coming out and I was looking for their endorsement, they were not even interested in reading my book. When I put my post on LinkedIn, when I published my book, can you believe, just because I have like thousands of, connection there, mostly engineers, I guess. So I maybe got like 2 or 3 likes on that. That's how I got. So you were right. So I pretty much learned that LinkedIn and this part of my life is never going to accept. It's almost like when I left my religion and my culture, when I divorced my husband in the year 2000, it was that point where every single people that were my friend, my community, everybody completely, it was like a switch off. They all just completely didn't even know me from that point, because I was divorcing, because nobody had ever divorced in my entire ancestry line. So when I did something, such a big crime, I completely lost it all. So it felt almost like that now, because I have 4 boys, right? So I said that this book is my 5th child. And the very fact that my work did not accept it like I was hoping for is already telling me that it's time to cut the umbilical cord. Like, I was actually thinking that. Last year, I had resignation letter ready. I was ready to resign NASA. Yeah.
Wow.
But then I have, like, all the people that I work with, they all love me and I love them, right? So we have a very good, so it's not like that, like when people come in your field. So that's the thing, Alex, that even though you may think that, okay, this girl is definitely far out in her mind, but when people come in your field, if you have an unconditional love for them, they're going to love you. Because even though they may not understand you, but they're not going to be mean to you, or they're not going to be. So I have never, like, everybody's always been nice to me, right? They may not agree with me, but there has never been that challenge. But one thing that I did was, like, I recently went to Johnson Space Center to meet my new team. And I had 2 people who were extremely stressed out because of their work. So I said that let's go on a walk. So I took them on a walk, and my God, the campus of Johnson Space Center is so
Yeah.
beautiful,
It
right?
was. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was like, so, we found this amazingly beautiful place, and I did the light body activation on them. I completely took them on a trance, and they were completely blown away. They had no idea what I was doing to them. And they said, this is so magical. And I said, that's all you have to do when you get stressed out. I'm teaching you how to do this. And they said, you need to tell me more about it. This is so interesting. So they got the flavor, and right after they got the flavor, they were interested in my book. So what I learned, Alex, is that people at the people level, they would love once they understand how much, the power you seek is the power within, right? If they
Mhm.
can really understand this power, they would love it. I think the thing that we're missing is that people have boxed them on classical physics mindset, and they need to open it up to the quantum physics mindset, which basically means that sky has no limit. And that would open the door for people to experience the life you have created for yourself and I have created so far.
So I love to ask you this. I'm assuming you've done a lot of studies in the spiritual space, from gurus to ancient texts and so on. One of the things that a lot of ancient texts have said, especially in the concept of reincarnation, where we come back and we keep learning lessons and we choose the circumstances. So you chose to be born in Pakistan and to go through everything to learn the lessons you've learned. I did the same thing in my world, and so on. Um, the one area, though, that is also spoke about is that Earth is not the only place that the souls reincarnate. That this universe is fairly big, and there is many options in the universe. And this is from the ancient texts. I'd love to hear your perspective as someone who's exploring the universe on, I'm not talking about UFOs or, I'm just talking about other civilizations, other planets where life can live, other planets that might be like ours, where a soul can go and learn lessons, maybe different lessons that they would hear. I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Yeah, and it's not like that I would have any problem talking about UFO because that all of these things have been so taken on a wrong angle. But what I would say,
Yes.
100% I agree that I actually knew because when I started becoming aware of myself, like I almost felt that I did not belong on this earth. Like I felt like this is a very confined space. Like I felt my body's confined. I felt like this earth is confined. So that awareness is the main reason I have been kind of seeking the freedom or seeking to understand that how far can I go in creating the reality that matches with my consciousness, right? So I would say that 100% I agree that we actually have been. And you know what? There are times, have you noticed, Alex, that, I mean, you meet so many people, but have you noticed there are some people that sparks in you in ways that you can't even explain it? I
Mhm.
feel like those people are from your tribe, like from your tribe, from your soul tribe, like from your star tribe. Like you were together at one point because you came here. We all are actually playing this Hunger Game because we signed up for it, right? I mean, that's
Mhm.
that's just the way I see it. So I do 100% believe. And one thing I've noticed because I've traveled a lot of sacred place, and Peru was like when I was in Lake Titicaca and those areas, I noticed like I met beings, like I met star beings that showed up in my meditation. Because the thing is with the frequency and vibration, right? You can't see everybody in person because our frequency and vibration doesn't match for them to show up in our physical reality. But it's much easier for them to show up in your spiritual reality, right? When you're meditating or when you are no longer distracted by the physical,
Mhm.
right? I have collected these star beings in the process of meditating. And I just love the fact that, like, sometimes you meet certain star beings when you're in a certain location. You know why? Because it's connected with because, you are a quantum being, which means that you actually have your own vibration and frequency. And then when you're standing on a space and time in a certain part of the earth, you are affecting your timeline. That's why when you go to sacred site, you can upgrade your DNA in ways that you can't if you are just where you are. You see my point? You have to do that. Like I went to Egypt, I felt like I upgraded my DNA because our position in space and time with respect to Earth and the cosmos and the moon and the star tribe that we are belong to, all of that is connected and it's affecting each other through quantum entanglement.
Well, let me ask you, you said that you wouldn't have a problem talking about UFOs. I've always been very hesitant about talking about UFOs on the show, purely because it has been so bastardized over the last 50 years, ever since Roswell, in Area 51 and all that kind of stuff.
Right, right.
But more recently, it's become a little bit more serious, but yet it's not taken seriously it is taken seriously now in the scientific community, but it's not taken seriously in the scientific community. I'd love to hear your point of view on what you think is happening in regards to these new things that are being come out, the government talking about they're not called UFOs anymore. What are they called now? They changed the name. Unidentified, not unidentified flying
A
object, but
UAP, is it
yeah,
UAP?
yeah,
Yes,
something like that. Yeah,
right, right.
something like that. But I'm curious to hear from a NASA rocket scientist's point of view, what's your opinion on what's happening with that?
Okay, so I'll tell you some few of my personal and then what I've learned. First of all, I think that, like the whole conspiracy theory has become conspiracy practical, as you've seen in what happened in 2020, right? I mean,
Hmm.
things are becoming, it's almost like there is that the saturate, like it takes a while for the masses to converge to the same consensus reality, which is
Hmm.
the main reason we have such a big lag, right? In people. So I always feel like, okay, we are ahead of our times, like, and that's fine. Personally, I have had people come to me, engineers come to me, partly because I hold the space, saying, like every single time when we have any major launch, every single time there's an intervention from star beings. Every single time. Like if the launch is meant to happen, the entire weather will change in the 3 hours of a launch window to make it happen or not make it happen. You see? So every time when the rocket gets launched, I've already seen the pattern that there's always an intervention. Can you believe that?
Interesting. That's interesting. From a point of view, see, and this is why I brought it up to you, from the point of view of the engineers doing the rocket stuff now. Like, this is not theory. This is like, no, this is what's happening right now.
Right.
And they go to you because they'll go, okay, she'll understand.
Because they know that I'm a little bit, because I'm there to actually burst everybody's pattern, because that's one of the things that I do. Like, because I try to leave NASA so many times and I haven't been successful, is because I'm supposed to stay there and project that light, right? I mean, there has to be a good reason for me to stay here for now. But you're right, because people do trust me. Like, I had people come to me and say that I would never say this to anyone, but you feel like someone I can share this and you won't judge me.
you
And
know,
that's how they confide in me.
and the same thing happens to me now. Having this show, a lot of my Hollywood friends will call me up and they'll go, "Can I talk to you about this?" I can't say this publicly, but you'll understand what I mean. This happened to me once, or this happened to me once, because just, Hollywood is run by fear. I mean, completely run by fear. It's insane. But they will confide in me now because they're like, "Oh, so, I saw grandma when she died, like so, or something like that." I'm like, "Oh,
Right, right,
okay." And
right.
oh, okay, great, great. He goes, "Yeah, during a meditation, this thing showed up." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, yeah, go to this episode and they'll talk to you about it in that episode, or go listen to the one with the NASA rocket scientist. She can explain a lot of the it's things like that." So
So
you're absolutely right.
So basically, I've had people tell me that they actually, okay, so some actually, one person come and told me that they actually knew about the Greys, the alien that was
Sure, sure.
they actually said that they overheard the conversation about it. They actually saw something that was like, like very short, like a little over 4 feet. So what I'm saying is I've had people come to me. So that has been one of the things. I've had my own personal experiences in the last 4 years that has blown me away. Okay.
Hmm.
And yeah, and one of them was completely, it was in the January 2020 when I was just going for my work. And right outside my house where I live right now, I saw a craft that I've never seen in my entire life, completely like making a contact with me. But it was a craft that looked organic. There was no human, but the craft and the human was one. I almost felt like there was an organic fuel source, because I saw something a little bit like letting up from the bottom. And as soon as, like, it was so weird, Alex, when I saw it, I knew that I am probably just creating it, right? Because I said this is impossible to see a craft that I can't recognize. So then what I did was, when I took a left turn and I was driving. I said, okay, let me look from my rear view mirror if I can still see it, because that would tell me that, am I hallucinating or is it real? It was still there. And that's when it dawned on me that I should have taken a picture, but I didn't. And then I came and looked on a Google for all the unmanned vehicle just to see if there's anything like that, like a drone. I could not find it. I almost felt like it was some sort of contact for me to hold to, because I have always believed that there's more than meets the eyes.
Mm.
And it's kind of like opening the door for that. So what I'm saying is that the very fact that so many people are asking these questions, and we do end up creating our consensus reality just by our imagination. And they
Right.
actually have, right? And you know what? That could be a whole different one if you ever want to do it, because I actually, and I can send you that, I found the declassified CIA paper that explains how we create the projection for ourselves through holographic reality.
So what do you mean by that? You mean like that we basically manifest the reality that we live?
That we want to live, yes.
So basically what they've been saying for thousands of years.
Yes,
There's a
100%.
declassified CIA paper.
I know. Can you believe? And you know what? They actually wrote the paper in 1983. They
Yeah.
declassified it in 2017. I stumbled on it while I was doing my book in 2020. So you could just see, and a lot of people still don't know about it. And I even sent it to some of the major physicists. And it's a very complex paper. It's 30 page. And I have highlighted the heck out of it because I loved it. And I have actually asked a few people that I would love to share this knowledge, because the way it's written, it's very
Yeah.
technical,
Yeah.
but I understand it and I want people to understand it. But it does share exactly what you just said.
So can you just slightly break down, because again, listen, I've spoken to so many people on the show about manifesting the life that you want to live, that you create the reality, that you are a projection. And it's all very esoteric. It's all very metaphysical. But to have a declassified CIA paper laying it out in a technical standpoint, can you give us a couple of key elements on how that paper explains this concept?
Yeah, so it kind of goes very much into the hologram concept of hologram.
Sure.
So when you understand yourself as somebody who receives the binary input, like when you're, especially in this physical form, you're continuously making a choice, right? So it's 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1. So when you do that processing, you take that 0 and 1 and you create a sacred geometry by transforming the binary information into 3D holographic image for yourself through your hippocampus, your thalamus. Your brain becomes, your third eye. All of that is connected, making a triangle from inside. What it does, that when you take, your left, so binary input comes through your logical side, but you have a visualization about the same information through your right hemisphere, from your creative side. So what happens with that dance, you basically superimpose that information into 3D and you converge that into quantum collapse to create the experience, providing if your subconscious is coming along with it.
Interesting.
I have a diagram, by the way. I have a whole chapter devoted to it, chapter 11. If anybody reads my book, they'll probably
Yes.
understand. Yes, thank you. Yes.
Yes. This book right here. This is that's absolutely fascinating. You said something in regards to vibration and frequency. And again, that is something also that's been bastardized over the years, like, hey man, good vibes and all that kind of stuff
Right.
from the 60s. But to my understanding, and again, I'm going back to the ancient texts that state that they are beings that, that live in antiquity, that were at a higher frequency, at a higher level than we were. And this goes in every culture. There's always sky, quote unquote, sky gods, or something that came out of the sea, or something along those lines. Every culture has something like that, that they were gifted with knowledge and everything, but the vibration, that they could feel a difference in their vibration. I've also understood that if there are, again, from a spiritual standpoint, I was actually speaking to a Swami the other day, as one does, and I was as I was speaking to the Swami, we were talking about if there was going to be, or in the past, that there was quote unquote alien life, let's say an alien being, that their vibration was so high that we couldn't even come near them. And if you were going to travel intergalactically, your level of vibration and frequency has to be at such a level to obtain the knowledge and understanding to be able to do light speed or go through wormholes or whatever these things to travel the cosmos. You have to be at such a high level that the chances of Independence Day happening, where there's an alien species that
That's
comes to
true.
destroy or attack or conquer, does not make any sense. That if there are aliens or if there are foreign beings are in on Earth, around Earth, that they're probably here to help because they're at a higher frequency and level. I'd love to hear your opinion on that.
Right. So first thing I wanted to explain people is that, we have a DNA. DNA is a fractal antenna, okay? So if you really think about it, as a human craft, we're interfacing with everything other than ourselves in the quantum field with other people, right? But because we are at subatomic level, are continuously moving, right? We see ourselves as a cohesive craft because like separation, right? Because of the way we process information. So if you understand yourself in that capacity, then you know that the way you vibrate decides what channel you're dialing in at a time of experiencing and even letting people come in. Like, when people, you set a date for lunch with someone, and if that person doesn't show up, is because they are not able to match the frequency and vibration that you're vibrating, and therefore it's not going to happen. So it's the same law applies with star beings or other species, is that you're not going to ever come in contact if you're never going to dial that channel, because it's like you're dialing the channel, right? Like you have to be aligned, you have to be vibrating, you have to have that frequency. So all of that becomes easy to understand when you start noticing that you're continuously dialing channel with yourself, and that decides whom you're going to interact with, in what form, in what plane. Because when you say physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, these are just to simplify, right? Because when you go into membrane theory or string theory, you know that we are layered species. So everything is kind of built on top of each other like a layer, and depends on which layer you're operating at, right? And where you're doing the dance, you're going to meet those people. Because if people are not in that layer, they are not going to interact with you. So that kind of answers your first question about, the frequency and vibration. The second thing that you mentioned, and I agree with you, is that if there are star beings or extraterrestrials who are already technologically advanced enough that they found us, right? Because they were advanced, so they found us. Then for them, we kind of become more like, like you have a dollhouse, right? And you want to just kind of play with it. I don't think that there's like, it's almost like you don't want to destroy the dollhouse because that's your source of entertainment. And that's how I see us, like from their perspective, right? But on the other hand, it's almost like it's like interesting to see someone who evolves, because it's like let's see how far are you willing to go for what you desire.
Have you ever seen a movie called The Abyss?
Loved it.
Did you see
I
the
loved it.
director's cut though?
Oh, really? I think
There's
that I
two.
saw the one that was extended, but I don't, the
Yes.
whole ending was just so out of this world.
Right. So then you probably eventually saw the director's cut or the extended cut, because
Yeah,
this
I
is the
think
reason I'm
so.
bringing it up is in that cut, there's the giant wave, the tidal wave, the giant tidal wave. Sorry, spoiler alert. It came out in 89, not my fault. But there's a giant tidal wave, and there's aliens or star beings underneath the ocean, and they've been there for God knows how long. But the second that they saw that the world was starting to almost destroy each other, they sent a message going, "You're not the only ones. We can wipe the entire planet out in 1 second," which is like they sent basically giant tidal waves to every coast of every country in the world, and they could literally wipe us out in a minute. Like,
That's
play
true.
nice. Do you remember that? Is that the version you
Yeah.
saw?
I mean, that part I didn't remember. I just remember the whole end blow me away because it
Okay.
became my favorite movie. Partly, I mean, considering the movie when it came out, right? I mean, it was like
89.
so.
Yeah.
Can you believe that in 89 they were showing something that even now, like it's so highly valued? I just didn't remember that part. But
You
that
probably
makes
didn't see
sense.
that, but you didn't see that. You didn't see the final. So go back, go rent the extended version.
Okay, extended
What
version.
it's so much better than the
Okay.
version that you probably saw, because the normal version doesn't have the tidal wave aspect of it. It didn't have this
That's probably why
message.
I didn't see. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what. Yeah. Oh, you got to see them. Oh, it's
Okay, I'm gonna have to
beautiful.
see it. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because, if you really think about it, right? I mean, yeah, of course, it's easy to destroy a dollhouse than build it,
Oh,
right?
of
It's always the
course.
case. And we are
It's
like a
it,
dollhouse to them.
yeah, because I mean, but and again, it's in the movie at least they're looking at us as they're watching us, they're guarding us, they're protecting us from ourselves.
Exactly.
Um, and I don't believe that we're in danger of destroying ourselves as a species anymore. I think there's always that potential, but I feel that, and I'd love to hear your point of view, that we are evolving and our consciousness is growing. Even in this last 30 years, how much the concepts of the metaphysics concepts that you learned are now commonplace. Channeling and channeling, near death experiences. These things are very common knowledge now and are spoken about not only in back corners with like when you walked into that book club.
Right, right.
Now there's
Yeah.
shows like this that get millions of people to watch it every day. So the world is changing. I do believe that we are moving. It's not going to be a fun ride on the way up. We're going to
That,
fight.
right, right. But you're right. Because, to me, like I believe in 100 monkey effect. I believe in a
Yes.
ripple effect, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I believe that, that's why the most important thing is that if you vibrate at a certain frequency, whether everybody else is walking with you or not, you're going to go where you're supposed to go, right? So you're going to
Mhm.
match up with the earth, match up with the people, match up with the tribe, match up with the experiences that you desire. But the thing is, it's like, have you read the book of Flying Seagull, John Seagull?
Oh, yeah,
Right?
Jonathan Livingston Skill, of course.
Right.
Fantastic.
So that has been my source of inspiration, because there are times you may feel that you're alone, right? Because we feel sometimes that, am I the only one believing this? Am I the only one, or am I really out of my mind? But that's okay, because, ultimately other seagulls will join you.
Yes. And that was the thing that you were saying, the conversions, that there's a lag time. That, yeah, I mean, people have been talking about, let's say, the concept of channeling or near-death experiences for probably 50 or 60 years. As far as channeling concerned, Edgar Cayce in the
Right.
20s and 30s. But now the concept of channeling is in the zeitgeist. We're like, oh, I'm going to go play basketball. I'm going to channel Michael Jordan. Oh, he must have been channeling this person or that, or he was channeling Elvis when he was doing those moves or whatever that is. Um, it takes a while for the rest of the population, the rest of the humanity to kind of catch up with these ideas. There's always those first trailblazers, but it does take time. But I think that window is closing faster and faster now than it used to.
Yeah, you mean like, I have to say something about channeling, because, when you see your DNA as a fractal antenna, you're channeling. Everybody's channeling at all times. It depends on what you're dialing into, right? You get to
It's
choose
a
that.
frequency. It's a radio.
Right.
You're a radio, and you just
You're a
choose.
walking and talking radio station yourself. That's why it's funny, because, like, communication is one of my favorite subject as a software engineer. And I love it because everything you learn in communication is how our body communicates with the quantum field. And it's so amazing, Alex, that we're so intricate. I always say we're so more intricate than the rocket I worked on, which is the reason I wrote the book Quantum Being. But what I'm saying is everybody is channeling at all times. We all are. That's the main reason. Like, I've done so much in my book. People come and say, oh, you're speaking the same language as Joe Dispenza. Like, I've never done, I don't know, like, I don't know the guy. I've never gone to any of his workshop. I'm aware of it like that, but I've never tuned into his channel. What does that tell you is that we're all tapping into the same quantum field, right? And that's
Mhm.
why, and you can channel anybody if you want to, because of the morphogenetic field, because you can call in those
Mhm.
energies to,
Mhm.
to kind of go through you.
Without question. Now I'm going to ask you a few questions to ask all my guests.
Sure.
What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
My definition of living a fulfilled life is that you converge and integrate what you think, what you feel, and what you experience to bring harmony.
If you had a chance to go back in time, and talk to little What advice would you give her?
I would tell her that be like a Dorothy in The Wizard of the Oz and keep living a life full of curiosity and full of meeting people and making friends, because journey is intertwined with the destiny.
How do you define God or source energy?
Omnipresent, everywhere. He's everywhere, and he is projecting his godness through you.
What is love?
Love is a glue that holds all the matter in the universe.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
Is to exude your maximum light and exude your, basically be the best version you can ever be in every moment.
And where can people find out more about you, your book, Quantum Being, and the amazing work you're doing in the world?
So if they type my name, if they can spell it, Shehnaz Soni, ShehnazSoni.com. Pretty much my website shares everything that I do. And if they type my name, they'll find me on different channels. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. And I just came out in social media last year, so I truly don't have a large following by any means. But what I wanted to share with everyone is that I am really ready to help people who are interested in having it all. And what I would mean by that is in my schedule today, I had a podcast with you, Alex, which was all about my spirituality and my right hemisphere. And then in the afternoon, I have a meeting with another Alex, an engineer, to talk about Moon to Mars architecture. And both of them is on the same calendar with Alex, by the way, which I just realized when I saw my calendar. I'm like, this is so interesting. I have to bring it up. But the point of the story is that you can have it all. You can be a NASA rocket scientist. You can still be a spiritual whistleblower. Because, at the end of the day, we are multi-layer species and we should do it all. And if one channel of yours demands, if NASA demands that, Shehnaz, you can't do all these other things, you have to only be this one person, then that's when you say, you know what? Nobody is going to limit my light. I'm not going to ever marry just one person because they are forcing me to be. No, that doesn't work like that. You have to be able to just keep broadcasting your light.
And do you have any other parting messages for the audience?
Another parting message is that the feeling that we have is the best gauge, and nobody else can feel what you feel. So that's why it's so important that you represent yourself, because just think about it. There's no one else representing you.
Shehnaz, thank you so much for this conversation. I had an absolute ball having you on the show. We have to do this again. There's so much more we could talk about. I mean, the universe, the depth of our soul. It's a fairly large conversation that we just can't do in an hour. But I appreciate you and your bravery for everything that you're doing in the world, my dear. Thank you again.
Thank you, Alex. I love it. And I am so grateful that we met finally in this physical reality.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.